It is now my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce this next session of 3 WDO senators. These are our past presidents who served WDO for a number of years on the board of directors as president-elect and ultimately as president for 2 years. This is a particularly exciting group of presidents as they served collectively from 2013 to 2019, which was a key transition period in our organization's history as it transitioned from the International Council of Societies of Industrial Design to World Design Organization. Out of these 3 individuals, we also recognize our only African president, Mugendi, who was just referenced by Ulrich, and our second female president, Luisa. Joining us today, we have, in the order that they served as president, Dr. Brandon Gien, the CEO of Good Design Australia, chair of the Australian Good Design Awards, and deputy chair of the Australian Design Council. He's spent the past 25 years passionately advocating for the value of good design to improve our social, economic, cultural, and environmental quality of life. He's an industrial designer by training and currently an adjunct professor of industrial design at both the University of Canberra and the University of New South Wales. He became a senator of World Design Organization after serving as president from 2013 to 2015, the first Australian to hold this position. During his term, he led the strategic transformation of the organization, resulting in a new name, vision, and mission aligned to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Welcome, Brandon. We also have Mugendi K. Mrita. Professor Mrita is a transdisciplinary industrial designer, educator, researcher, and presently works at Machakos University in Kenya. Mugendi has a special interest in the pivotal role of design thinking and advancing the developmental agenda on the African continent. He is a founding member and Simba Fellow of the Pan-African Design Institute, Design Council of Africa, and is associated with a number of other international networks focusing on design within industrially developing contexts, including the Association of Designers of India. Additionally, Mugendi is a senator of the World Design Organization, having been the first African president in the history of WDO and served from 2015 to 2017. Much of his work with WDO focuses on the importance of supporting the aspirations of designers worldwide in the industrial design profession's collective quest to resolve wicked problems in diverse contexts. And last but not least, we have Luisa Bocchietto, who I had the pleasure of seeing just 2 weeks ago in Valencia, and who works as a designer and architect in both the public and private sector, carrying out projects aimed at local development, urban reclamation, and renovation. She's contributed text on architecture and design for various publications, has organized exhibits, as well as attended conferences and served on many international juries. As a past WDO president, the second woman to hold this position from 2017 to 2019, Luisa continues to be involved in the organization's programs, most recently in World Design Capital Valencia 2022. Welcome to the 3 of you.
Thank you, Natalie. For that amazing introduction. Mugendi, hello. Luisa, hello. So nice to see your faces again. I've been asked to help moderate this panel, so I'm going to do my best at doing that. I guess the first thing is just, it's quite amazing that, if I look at the 2 of you, you served on the board with me. We had such a fantastic time together, and Mugendi, having you as my president-elect and Luisa as the next president after Mugendi, it was really a momentous time for the organization. If I can maybe just share a little bit of my own experience and then ask Mugendi and Luisa in that order to share your experience during that transition from what was ICSID, the International Council of Societies of Industrial Design, as we transition to this big, ambitious new organization with a different vision, a different focus, which is more aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals. For me personally, just being elected to the board, I was elected first in, I think it was 2004 in San Francisco. It was such an enormous honor for me to be there waving the flag for Australia and the region that I represent here in Oceania. And I think my first experience for 2 years was really just to learn, to not really play too much of an active role, but just spend 2 years getting my learning wheels on and trying to understand the organization, trying to understand the mechanics of the organization, and also slowly try to think like a designer. Many of you would know that I kept on making that reference that at the end of the day, we are all designers. And what I would have really liked to have brought to the board is that critical thinking, that creative thinking in everything that we do. And what we were proposing during my term, Mugendi and Luisa, you were there as well, is really to completely redesign the organization, and not just rebrand it, not just call it something else, but really change its course. And I guess my experience was, how do you do that? How do you convince the design community that this is a good move? How do you convince our members that this is the way to go? And keep in mind, this is 10, 15 years ago, when the world looked very different. We still have a lot of challenges, but little did we know that those challenges would accelerate so much over that very short period of time. Mugendi, I have a very vivid memory of you even telling me that we shouldn't call it global warming, we should call it climate change. That's how early those discussions really were, about trying to position design as a problem-solving tool and align them to these big global challenges. So for me, it was 2 years as president was really trying to work with our members. I love the term Ubuntu. Mugendi's taught me a lot about that, and designing for and designing with are two very different things. And that we were trying to actually design with our members and design with the design community to redesign the organization, come up with a very aspirational vision for what we think the World Design Organization should be. It was very evident to us that aligning our goals and objectives and essentially everything that we do to the Sustainable Development Goals was just a very obvious thing to do if we look back at it now. I note that this afternoon, the Design for Good initiative was launched, which I think is just such a fantastic initiative to really focus design on those SDGs. They're picking one SDG every year. And I look back at the conversations we had during my term, and I thought, wow, that's exactly what we were trying to achieve. So I saw that period as one of the most exciting, dynamic, interesting, challenging periods that I'll always look back on very, very fondly, and so incredibly honored and lucky to be surrounded by so many amazing people around the board that helped me visualize what it is that we were trying to do. And I look back now and I look at all the work that's been done by presidents that have and board members that have taken over to continue that passion for positioning design as a problem-solving tool. And I genuinely believe that's where the future is. Industrial designers will always be known for designing things, but we've also got to be known for designing better things and designing solutions to things that really matter to the world. So that was my little experience. Mugendi, I might handball over to you, and just as the first president from the continent of Africa, I think it was also very timely that you took over from me during that transition. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and your experiences during your term as president.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. And it was great seeing Ulrich and Tando speak about Ubuntu, which Brandon has just referenced. Maybe that's where I'll take my conversation from. So the whole idea of Ubuntu as an inclusive and empathic ethos or philosophy. I think I benefited so much from the rich tradition of presidents that came before me, and my immediate past president then was you, Brandon. And I think it was such an important transition we made when we aligned ourselves with the UN SDGs, because the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals actually were promulgated in 2015. And that was just around the time I became the president of WDO. Secondly, as you mentioned, by using design thinking, charity begins at home, and we use design thinking to help us align better with the membership and their aspirations. So the transition from ICSID to WDO was informed by a comprehensive design thinking exercise. And I remember we were led by Maureen in Sydney, hosted by yourself, Brandon. So these were critical pivots, if I might put it, that the organization went through. And so my task was made that much easier, first of all, because I am a huge proponent of socially conscious design. I believe that industrial designers and designers within the broader discipline of design should be part of the solution for humanity. We should not be self-serving or only focus on the 10% of humanity that needs or pays for our professional services, but to look at how design could actually impact the majority of humanity. Secondly, for myself, coming in as the first president from this region, living in this region, I'll put it, because I know Brandon also has some African roots. Ultimately, if we stretch it, even Luisa will claim, some roots from here, but we can arm wrestle on that one later. But we are a family, and that's an important bit. We are here to support one another, and every president, most recently Srini after Luisa, and now David Kusuma, has carried this vision and helped us get deeper and deeper into understanding what our core mission and vision is. I'll just summarize by saying that from the African perspective, and I've been a proponent of Africa with a K, as you saw it in Open Design Africa's own branding. It has a K, which is about Africa co-creating a narrative from its own reality and perspective. I'm also inspired by a Nigerian proverb that says that until lions have their own historians, tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. And so in a sense, I've been a designer, ambassador, historian for the continent. And I believe I'm so excited when I see others who are also speaking up for the continent in a fresh and inspiring new way. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you, Mugendi. And I just had this beautiful flush of memories that make me realize just how much I love being a part of the WDO family and having you on the board with me, where you had these beautiful proverbs that just, when we lost track and we went down dark holes and we weren't really sure what we were doing, you would always pull one out of your hat and we'd all just manage to center us back on and bring us back on track. So Luisa, fantastic to see you. And what I think is amazing, as I sit here in Sydney, it's 7 o'clock at night, and I think, Mugendi, you're on one continent. Luisa, you're on a completely different part of the world. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the World Design Organization, is that, as Mugendi said, it is one big, gigantic design family that spreads to the entire world, and sitting on the board, being exposed to these incredible design minds from all over the world, where we look at the context of design completely differently. What impacts us here in Australia is a completely different impact to the continent of Africa and what's going on in Europe at the moment. But Luisa, tell us a little bit about your experience when we finally handed the presidency over to you. What was your 2 years like?
Yes, thank you so much, Brandon, and happy to see Mugendi again in this opportunity of call. And I am very proud as a woman and as an Italian and as a European citizen to have the opportunity to hold this position in a significant moment in WDO's path of great change and evolution. I always thought that women must have the courage, first of all, to work themselves, to face the management of role of responsibility. As a personal bet, and in a way that is an example for next generation. Sometimes, often in a sense of unjustified remission that frighten us, while then on the field any difficult can be faced by men and women with the same humility and dedication, especially when one is committed to making common endeavors progress. It was an honor for me as a woman to take this position, and I try to put all my competence for doing the better things for the organization. My great experience was that when I arrived in the board, I think that different people coming from different parts of the world have probably a different vision of design. It was wrong. All these people coming from different culture, also different profession, because we was professional, designer, entrepreneur, teacher, but we had at the same level the vision of design. That was a great surprise for me. And I arrived to the conclusion that that design is a common language that we can use around the world, and that we probably can use also to become more near each to other and to develop solution for future. That was a really great experience. When we talk about WDO family, is a real, a concrete emotion that we have to continue to meet people as you, continue to help each other to promote design around the world. And that was a great experience.
Thank you, Luisa. You know, for me, I'm dying to share a little story because it's a story that really brought everything home for me. And it was when we were in Nairobi, we had a board meeting there, and Mark Breitenberg, who was also a president from the US, we went to an event, and it was there to celebrate the community cooker. This is one of the World Design Impact Prize winners. And the presentation was just so fantastic. This is such a unique project that is really solving a big problem. And Mark, pretty much towards the end of the night, just burst out crying. I hope he won't mind me saying that. And he was so emotional. And I went up to him and he said, I understand what it is we're trying to do. I get it, you know. And Luisa, I think that's what you were saying, is that we bring all these different perspectives, but at the heart of it, designers have this passion to really just to do good and to solve big problems. And when I experienced that moment with Mark, it was very touching, because for me, this is why we do what we do. If we can inspire more projects like this, if we can inspire more designers around the world to use their talent and apply that talent to solving some of these big challenges around the world, that's what this organization really should be all about. I want to talk to you a bit about leadership, because we are all presidents, and now we have the fortunate role of being senators. But in our own right, when you step into the role of president, it's a pretty scary proposition to know that you are really responsible for this organization for the next 2 years and setting its direction. One of my most favorite designers in the world is Bruce Mau, and he has this beautiful way of just explaining that designers have such an incredible ability to imagine what the future looks like, and then systematically design our way towards it. And for me, I think that's, as a leader, as a design leader, that's really what I try to bring to the board during my term, is just to try and illustrate what that vision for the future will look like, and help us actually systematically move towards that. Mugendi, I'm keen to hear your interpretation of what makes a good leader, what makes a good design leader, in a corporate sense, in a societal sense, in an education space that you're playing in now. How would you approach being a good design leader?
Thanks, Brandon. Maybe speaking from experience, I think the first attribute I'd assign to leadership is to be constantly curious. So for me, curiosity is important because designers are constantly dealing with designing and contemplating ideas that will only be manifest in the future. So we are a future-oriented profession. So curiosity helps. When you hear something new, instead of being cynical, I think curiosity is an attribute that I would heavily endorse. The other one is empathy. I think the minute you realize that, as Luisa mentioned, that we all want the same things across the world, whether they're in so-called developing parts of the world or developed parts, if you ask someone what they want in life, they'll tell you something about improving the quality of life of their families, their friends, and even of themselves. So empathy helps us understand that there's a lot that we share in common as a human family. And then the other attribute I suggest is useful is humility, to realize that the fact that you're in leadership is not necessarily because of something you've done, but it's because people have invested in you and that you have a unique opportunity, indeed a privilege, to serve. So I believe in servant leadership, which technically means that you serve the greater good. And I think a good leader should be one who takes responsibility when things go wrong, but who ascribes a credit to the entire team when things go right, instead of the other way around. And I think I was privileged enough to have been mentored by people in WDO and outside of WDO. Many of you would remember Adrienne Villion, who literally, told me, Mugendi, I think you should join the board, despite my reluctance and lack of self-confidence. But through that encouragement and that, opening opportunities and allowing me to step on their shoulders, others have helped me become a better leader. And so I think in the same spirit, each one teach one. I believe a good leader should constantly be mentoring the next generation of leaders, because that keeps us real. It keeps our legacy in context and also keeps us grounded in the realities that we serve in. Thanks, Brandon.
Absolutely beautiful. Humility and empathy. Love it. Luisa, you were such a great person to have on our board, and I felt so much confidence when you got elected as the president to continue this narrative and continue the strategy that we were creating, during my term and even before my term when Sunin Lee was the president as well. Describe to us what does leadership look like for you? What does good leadership look like for you as an architect and as a designer?
Yes, before answering your question about the leadership, I want to add something about our work as a president, because it was another strange and extraordinary thing that I want to put on the table, that we work together as a president of this organization with a common vision. The two presidents that was president before me, you, Brandon, and you, Mugendi, and then after me, Srini and David Kusuma, that continue in that vision. That is a strange thing, because it's not ordinary in the association to have the continuity of this vision along the time. And that was an important progress that is continuing, the work is in progress. And for me, there was a very difficult moment when I was, because we changed the vision, the contents, and then we changed the name, and then we changed the internal organization, and then the external communication. And for me, I was at the central part of this path, and I did to do a delicate work to change the internal organization and choose the new director that is doing now a really good work, that is Bertrand Derome, with all the team. And I can do in a moment the figure as a president and also the figure as director. That was very hard for me, but I I take the support of all the members of the board. A beautiful demonstration of collaboration that I will never forget. I want to remember that in that moment because it's important. It's a good message. It's a good signal for the people in the organization. And about the leadership, for me, the leadership consists in observing the change taking place in society and interpreting the role that a discipline such a design can play. I consider strategic in today's world this discipline of design because it's located between the scientific world and connected to the new technology, but in the other place to the humanistic world, interested in understanding human needs. I believe that design can help to create a real better world as a tool for the humanization of technologies, which otherwise can have a dangerous impact on the human being as a whole. That is, for me, the most important goal for design today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Luisa. I'm conscious of time and seeing we've only got about 5 minutes left, I want to end our conversation to talk about young designers because someone who is a father, I've got 2 children who are just getting into their teens now, and I constantly think about the world that I'm leaving them as a designer. What does that world look like, and what role do I have as a designer, as a designer getting much older? How do we encourage more young people to get into design and to leverage their creative skills? How do we encourage more young people to get involved with WDO? And I want to commend WDO for creating the Young Designers Circle. I think it's such a fantastic initiative to get more young people involved. Mugendi, you're in the education space. If you had your magic wand, what advice would you want to give the next generation of designers who are going to take over from us when we're wheeling ourselves around in wheelchairs?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very sobering thought, but that is real. And maybe I'd like to just pause for a moment and reference Patricia Moore, who's this year's winner of the World Design Medal, because what I'm about to say is heavily influenced by having been exposed to her work at an early age. And I think what I'd like to challenge young designers to do by embracing this attribute I referenced earlier around empathy, it means you can design for other people who need not be in your situation. In Patricia Moore's example, she showed and demonstrated quite vividly, even as a young woman in the 80s, that she could actually anticipate and design for someone who was in their 80s. And this idea of designing for your future self is something I'd encourage young designers to contemplate. When you design for the elderly or for people in other circumstances, in a sense, you're designing for your future self. The way I'd conclude then to encourage young designers is to, 1, connect, 2, collaborate, and 3, co-design with other young designers across the world. I think the Young Design Circle in the World Design Organization offers such a platform, but I'd really encourage them. We have the technology, and the times we live in allow us to speak across great divides. Like you mentioned, we're in 3 different parts of the world as we speak. And we have someone like Srini joining us from Asia as well, and others from different parts of Africa and so on. So young people today have been born in really exciting times. And if they embrace the technologies that avail themselves, and I'm speaking not just of the 4th industrial revolution that we are actually seeing being supplanted by the 5th industrial revolution, which has been accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is the one that talks to us collaborating with robots, not fighting or being antagonistic, but seeing robots as being friendly. And so we have this concept of cobots. So young designers, this is my challenge to you. How are you going to coexist with cobots? How can you help make the world a better place and improve the quality of life of citizens in diverse parts of the world. That's my challenge. And as you said correctly, Brandon, we are there. When we are older, hopefully we'll reflect and say we were there to support and mentor these young people. Because as the Somalis say, be a mountain or lean on one. So I'm here, I'm volunteering to be leaned on, and I believe everyone else here also is offering themselves for support. Thank you.
Thanks, Mugendi. You can see just how addictive you can get to Mugendi's quotes, right? Luisa, your advice for the next generation of young designers.
Yes, I think that the development of design has established itself as a discipline 100 years ago, making form and function interacting. And now the new criteria need to be sustainability, because if in the past the human needs was at the center of our path, our process, our work, now the center need to be the next generation, the planet, and the future. And that is the new criteria over form and function to judge the good design for future, for next generation. I think we need to create less product and more solution for the problem that we have on the planet. And about the advice for the new designer, I feel like taking the word of a great Italian designer, Achille Castiglioni, that I am personally, that always use it to say, if you are not curious, forget it. And I think if you want to be a designer, you need to continue to be curious, do not stop learning, make transversal connection to create innovation, and try to develop for the future more solutions than products, to contribute with your creativity to really and concretely change and safeguard the world that surrounds us. I think is a work in progress in a very great profession.
Thank you, Luisa. And I'm conscious of time. I'm going to end just by saying it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you both. I can't wait to see you in person and give you a big WDO hug each. I also want to just take this opportunity to really thank the World Design Organization Secretariat, the entire team for pulling together not only this event, but really pulling so many events together during COVID, during that 2-year period when we were all locked down. I think you all just did such a stunning job to create so many engaging events, and it's a credit to all of you, and also to our dear friend Srini, who is now a senator, for everything that you did during your term during COVID. I can't imagine how challenging that must have been for you, not to be able to travel, not to be able to really experience what it was like being a president when the world was open and we were allowed to travel from country to country. And I also, of course, wish David Kazuma all the best during his presidency. He's going to be such an amazing president. He's got so much history that he brings with him. And as you say, Luisa, to be able to carry on this strategy that we created so many years ago and to stick with it and just make it better and better and better. That's what the World Design Organization is about, is design for a better world. So it's been a real pleasure to talk to you both, and hopefully see you all soon. Good night.
Thanks, Brandon.
Bye soon.
Hi,
My
Lisa.
best.
Hi,
Bye.
Srini, and everyone else. Thanks, Sarah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. What a special session on the occasion of our 65th anniversary and World Industrial Design Day. Thank you so much, WDO Senators.